The Philadelphia 76ers continue to put on an absolute masterclass of tanking to end the season and are getting a little bit of help around the NBA. As the team continues to pick up losses and stacking the deck in their favor to maximize these odds of it happening, they have now dropped to the fifth worst record in the NBA, and there are some significant changes about their lottery odds and the future of this franchise. Shout out to the Brooklyn Nets, shout out to the New Orleans Pelicans, and shout out to the Philadelphia 76ers for continuing to find a way to lose. As a newest update is they've dropped to the fifth worst record in NBA, down to 23-52. I believe they've lost 23 of their last 27 games, or 24 of their last 27 games. I'm recording this officially after the Toronto Raptors game, and to acknowledge that game directly here, it was a 127-109 loss. Pretty fun tanking game, to be perfectly honest. So we got some nice flashes. Got 23 points out of Lonnie Walker. Adem Bona, I want to hit on a little bit deeper later, but 14 points, 8 rebounds. Did have 9. There was a stat correction there. We saw Jalen Shafino with 18 points off the bench. And beyond that, the bigger story here is teams around the NBA picking up losses there. The Brooklyn Nets found a way to lose in awesome fashion. These have been must-watch League Pass moments for these games come down to the wire. Tonight, the New Orleans Pelicans winning one with Jose Alvarado taking on the world by himself, essentially down the stretch, that being the Pelicans' late-game offense, but they found a way to beat the Hornets, and that is huge news for the Sixers team. Now, what does this mean directly here as far as the odds? There is no way around that it is going to come down to the ping pong balls for whether or not the Sixers maintain their top 6 protected pick. And as this is currently stated, to be completely clear here, the Sixers have already traded this draft pick. It is not theirs, but they get it back if it falls within the top 6. And while that seemed improbable or impossible leading into the season, it is quite on the table right now. So as things currently stand with the Sixers with the fifth worst record in the NBA, they have a 42.1% chance at it being a top 4 pick, a 10.5% chance at it being the number 1 overall pick and Cooper Flag coming to Philadelphia, and about a 64% chance of keeping it outright. Now, this conversation gets a little difficult because there could be ties, things like that, but what we know now is the Sixers sort of control their destiny from here. If they do not win another game for the rest of the season, which based on what we're seeing on the floor seems entirely possible here, they will have a 64% chance at keeping their draft pick, and that's about as good as you could ask for. Now, while I say it's as good as you can ask for, I'm ready to take it a step further. That I have the New Orleans Pelicans circled, and I do believe the Sixers have a chance at catching them here. We've kind of had our focus on the Raptors, and the Raptors have certainly kind of climbed above the pack a little bit. They just have too many young, talented players that they have not done a good enough job while they are trying. Emmanuel Quickley, I mean, he's out for rest every other day here, but the point being here, the Sixers have found a way to get worse, and why is that exactly here? To take a peek at their lineup today, this intimidating starting lineup of Justin Edwards, Ricky Council IV, Adem Bona, Jared Butler, and Lonnie Walker IV. I know that sends shivers around the rest of the NBA here. This was their 51st starting lineup of the season, 51st unique, different starting lineup of the season, which ties the Memphis Grizzlies of last year for the most ever different starting lineups in the NBA. That is the state of the Sixers, and while the takeaway for the season cannot just be injuries, that is certainly a driving force of why we are at where we are at here. Now, to bring it back to the Pelicans overall, I did want to highlight their schedule down the stretch here, that obviously the season winding down across the league, only a handful of games left, and they are 2 games below or ahead of, depending how you want to look at it, from the Sixers in the standings here. So the remaining Pelicans schedule is at the Clippers, at the Lakers, versus the Milwaukee Bucks, at the Brooklyn Nets, at the Milwaukee Bucks, versus the Miami Heat, and then versus the Oklahoma City Thunder there. Not ideal when we're asking for wins for this team, but I do think it's possible. That Brooklyn Nets game is going to be absolutely huge. I do think the Nets are fully back on this tanking mindset here. They got kind of a wake-up call that the Sixers did pass them, and once again, at the end of the day, it is going to come down to the fate of the ping pong balls for how that order is decided there. Now, the other game that I did want to note here is that last match of the season against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Don't get me wrong, I understand the Thunder are an absolute wagon right now, beating everyone in front of them and have a legitimate chance of winning the championship overall, but that's going to be the last game of the season. I think it's more than likely that that team's going to be resting just about everyone, and I am opening the door for the Pelicans having a bit more to play for at that stage of the season. If it comes down to that, we will be locked in, we will be ready, so just keep that in mind right there, but we are huge New Orleans Pelicans fans from here on out. Now, to touch on a little bit of kind of the odds scale here, I think shout out to tankathon.com, man. I feel like I am back like it is the process years all over again. That has not been removed from my browser in weeks at this point, updating every day, looking at the odds, looking at the standings, and they got some good draft breakdown stuff too. But to kind of take a peek at these, the most important note is that title right here. This is the current odds with ties included. So if 2 teams are to end with the same record, the Brooklyn Nets or the Pelicans really being the ones that we are looked at for the Sixers here, it gets a little complicated. But to keep it as simple as possible, possible. This is the scale the Sixers are currently on. They have a 10.5% chance of the first pick, a 10.5% chance of the second pick, a 10.6% chance at the third pick, 10.5% chance at the fourth pick, a 2.2% chance at the fifth pick, 19.6% at that sixth pick, and what we don't want to see there, 26.7% at the seventh pick, 8.7 for the eighth, 0.6 at 9 here. If it were to fall on any of those, it goes to the Oklahoma City Thunder, which is not what we want to see whatsoever there. But we could see them move up. You can see the difference pretty clearly laid out here. For example, if they were able to pass the Pelicans and drop below them in the standings, we're talking about a 12.5% chance at Cooper Flagg, 12.2% chance at the 2 pick, 11.9% chance at the 3 pick, 11.5 at 4, and so on and so forth there. And why it was especially important to get to the spot there now with the 5th is because of the chance of one team hopping up and basically shifting down the scale of how the lottery odds. If they were that sixth odds or sixth best odds of winning the overall lottery here, it takes just one team to pass them for them to drop out. They now have that one extra team of cushion. The direct odds go from 46 to 64 for their likelihood of keeping the pick, but that is a big jump there, and hopefully we can get to that 81% of keeping it remaining a top 6 pick if it falls and we are able to pass the Pelicans here. So shout out to the New Orleans Pelicans. We will be riding hard for them for the remainder of the season. Now, while all of our focus should be on the lottery odds and basically limping to the finish line, do got to give a little bit of love to the guys on the floor. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but the guy who really caught my eye, particularly in tonight's game and really this back-to-back last night against the Heat and against the Toronto Raptors, it is Adem Bona here. And to kind of highlight his stats specifically, finished with 14 points, 9 rebounds, 5 blocks there, 4 for 4 from the free throw line, which is important to note. That is kind of an area of emphasis. There were some questions about him as a shooter. He really hasn't shown it, and he struggled at the free throw line for stretches in college here. The shooting form, to my eyes, looks awesome. I think he's everything that you want in just a rotational standard big man. What Adem Bona is going to do at the NBA level, he's going to set screens, he's going to block shots, he's going to catch lobs, and he's going to rebound the crap out of the basketball. And that's exactly what you're looking for in a center, man. When you think about actually modeling a basketball team in today's NBA, that is perfect. That is Clint Capella. That's Onyeka Okongwu. That is that style of player, and that is who Adem Bona is growing into. If we can get like a legitimate lob threat type point guard, or maybe Tyrese Maxey can hone those skills a little more, that is a weapon within the Sixers offense moving forward. And I do think Bona could be the long-term backup center of the future for the Sixers. And straight up, he's been more effective than Andre Drummond in the this year sample size. Now, obviously, this season's off the rails. We're not interested in Drummond returning. He does have that player option for next year, which I do think is going to absolutely haunt the Sixers here. The only positive spin I would throw on that, it's roughly a $5 million deal, and we can kind of start to talk to the trade conversation there, that's a decent enough salary chunk. You can kind of piece things together and maybe get an attainable player. I've seen a little bit of speculation in which you package that with Kelly Oubre, who also has a player option that is going to be up to him. I'd much more happily welcome back Kelly Oubre, although I know quite a few you guys out there are not the biggest Oubre fans either, and I get it. He's not a perfect player by any means, but I got to give a lot of respect for a guy who has maintained the professionalism that he has on the season, and frankly, Oubre competes his butt off every single night, which I give him credit for, especially in a season like this. But if those two guys were to potentially opt into their player option, you can package that together for roughly a $13 million price tag there. Of course, we're talking about adding draft picks or whatever the case may be, whatever actually makes an attractive package to the team that you're negotiating with, but that is a potential move that you could kind of get off these deals. And what that would happen is it paves the way for Adem Bona to be the backup center of the future. He's still very young. He's still very raw. He's definitely over-aggressive, going to foul too much. There's things to, fine comb and perfect in his game, but the raw skills and the raw talent and just the straight-up combination of athleticism and size that he possesses is a real asset on the Sixers team. He's a type of player that we really have not seen here. It's what they were hoping for with a DeAndre Jordan type or all these, ghosts of centers that have rolled through. The guys at the very tail end of their career. I like that there's more into the youth movement here. Now, one other guy that I did want to highlight here, and this kind of on the negative side here, I hate to do it because he actually played pretty well tonight. Ricky Council with 17 points, 11 rebounds, had 3 assists there. What has really come to a realization of mine, I do think we're in the midst of the end of the Ricky Council the fourth experience. And it is disappointing. I had some high hopes for Ricky when he first stuck with the Sixers, but this should be the type of environment that he thrives in, where it is madness, it is a free-for-all, you can basically do whatever you want on the floor. That should be where we're seeing the best version of Ricky Council, and I think it's kind of be the opposite of this. I'm not ruling out that maybe there is a world where he can find his footing elsewhere, but I am sensing that the door is closing in Philadelphia for Ricky Council. And when you factor in the decisions that are being made, such as Quentin Grimes not playing today, clearly a tanking effort, and this team stacking the cards in their favor to rack up losses. It's a little bit telling to me that Ricky Council is constantly out there logging some significant minutes. That tonight he played 36, tied with Lonnie Walker for the most on the team. That he's basically been the tank commander for this team. And he has a non-guaranteed contract next season. To project a little forward, I do think the Sixers will be declining that one, and he does end up in the free agency. So maybe I'm wrong. We'll see what happens with Ricky. I know he's a guy who's very well liked within the locker room and all around the Sixers organization as a whole, but that is kind of my pulse of that from a basketball perspective at this point in time. But regardless, a fateful final few games for the Sixers season. It is almost at an end, and we can get into some real deal offseason stuff when we have an idea of what their draft pick is looking like, the moves that need to be made from here. I did put my foot in my mouth saying that I have to recreate every Jared McCain TikTok because the Sixers did miss the playoffs here, so I'm going to have to get my hips in action. I'm not looking forward to that whatsoever, but nonetheless, we will have a breather soon, and the season will be over. But I'm going to keep rocking with you guys right here on Sixers Digest. So make sure you guys are tapping in as well. Hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a like on this video, and go Pelicans go.